Well, thank you so much, Brent Riley. He is joining us today. He was an alumni of our station and was on air, back in the day. So he is joining us for our fundraiser week, of course, Nightmare on Green Street. So thank you so much, Brent, for joining us today.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. Always more than happy to, call on those connections and bring our alumni back when we can, especially, with the way the semester is. And we've got a really strong alumni connection, and with COVID and all, it's a little hard.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I can't even imagine what you all are going through. Yeah, and I live in the city, so I can imagine. Yeah, it's a whole different ball game this semester. So good for you for getting as much done as you all are getting done already.
Oh, well, I appreciate that. Thank you so much. So first off, when were you active with WUSC?
I arrived in the fall of 1989, and then I was there throughout my 4.5 years at USC, and I graduated in December of 1993, but I was a high school English teacher, and so that allowed me pretty much every summer until probably 2005, maybe. I tried to do an alumni coming back on the summers to do a show because I live in Columbia. So I was able to do at least one show most of those years, I think, until I might have taken 1 year off. And then around 2005, I ended up leaving teaching for 4 years and could not go with a regular scheduled show in the summers. And so that was the last time. So I guess in 2005 was when I left it for good, but I was there solidly from 89 to 93.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's a really long time. And it's so great that we do have those alumni to, come back and do those shows. I mean, I know we appreciate it. I know it's, a good time for y'all, and it definitely helps us out with what we can do on air. So thank you so much for doing all that. What was your DJ name and your show?
I guess pretty much the entire time, DJ name was Brent Stud Dog Riley. And it sounds kind of silly now, especially as I've gotten older. But, it was one of those things that I gave myself the nickname in high school. I was that guy. And then I just said, well, that's so dumb. It'll probably just work, And so I went ahead and did it. And it led to all the also equally kind of sophomoric humor of, if you haven't heard of me, ask your sister. I would say that on the radio. Or, household name to preteen, post-teen, and den-teen women, whatever kind of dumb thing saying like that. And so it was Brent Stud Dog Riley. But then once I got into the alumni thing in the summers, I ended up going with still Brent Stud Dog Riley, but I called it the Seed Toss. And that was actually, I'm just now realizing the double entendre there if I'm trying to act like I'm some stud. But it was not like that at all. Wow, and here I am. Now I'm realizing that so long ago. Anyway, it was named after a Superchunk song, and they are a band from Chapel Hill on, used to be, I can't believe I can't even think of the record label they are on. They went to Matador briefly, but it's Max, the lead singer's. I really can't believe, because they're one of my favorite bands, but I will not focus on that. They are a band from Chapel Hill, and they have a song called Seed Toss, which I really enjoyed, and so I thought, pretty good name. I was there's a fellow DJ here in Columbia, and I think his name is Kevin Langston. And he had the Waiting Room, which he named after the Fugazi song. And I was always jealous. I thought that was the perfect name. And so I said, well, when I go, I'm going to go with a Superchunk song. And it's Merge Records, by the way. I knew I would not be able to press on until I figured that one out. So they're on Merge Records. But I would play that song as my first song as I came on, because I thought that was a good way for people who were driving around town. If they heard that song every week, right before my show, they might recognize, hey, I know this guy, or I like this guy's music, so I'll stick around. So all through my alumni times in the summers, it was Brent Stud Dog Riley's toss. Yeah, man, I really can't believe that had such sexual innuendo so well. I guess that's what's so good about 90.5.
Retrospect is always 2020, I guess. But it's funny that you mentioned Kevin, because he's actually a staff member at USC, and he's actually got a show this semester since he is a staff member. Yeah, so he's able to come back since he's still university affiliated.
Yeah, so fantastic. I did not know that he was still around. I'll have to go on the program guide and find it.
So when you did start at WUSC, how did you find out about the station? What led you to join?
All right, so I grew up in Columbia. I went to Irmo High School, and being into the alternative scene, you find out that there's this alternative radio station. So I would listen to it all through high school. Like they had the Purple Lagoon reggae show, which was on Thursday nights from 9 to midnight. And, of course, I was the cool high school student who thought I was really breaking all the rules by staying in my room until midnight, and listening to reggae music, And so I would listen to that, and there was a metal show that I listened to and a hardcore show. So I would listen to it. I didn't listen to much, of course, during the day because I was in school, but the specialty shows, which started at 6, I pretty much knew when all those were. But my brother ended up going to Georgia Tech, and he started working at WREK down in Atlanta. And he told me when I was deciding to go to college, he was 2 years ahead of me. He said, wherever you go, make sure there's a radio station and work for it because it's amazing. And he used it primarily to get into concerts on the guest list in Atlanta for all the bands that came through. And so I thought, perfect. And so sure enough, that was the first thing I made a beeline to whenever I enrolled in the University of South Carolina. I found out how to become a DJ. So I was one of those that kind of grew up listening to it, at least from high school on. And then my brother's influenced it. Yes, it's really fun to work at one. That's what drew me to 9.5.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, I feel like we have such an impact on the local community here in Columbia. And that's something that even from out of state, like I'm from Atlanta, so I'm very familiar with WREK. I've got friends from high school who are working there as well. And I just,
nice.
Yeah, so I just absolutely love, being able to ingrain myself and just kind of dig myself into this community here. So kind of moving off of that, why do you think college radio is so important to the local community?
The people that work in the radio are the exact ones who are go-getters for all the causes that help the community. Like they're already the ones that are doing all of the, localized farming or just community service stuff, recycling, or, working with animals or feeding the homeless. The crowd that goes to all of those entities that help out the community are the ones that work at this radio station. And so it's just kind of like one, and they just go together, it's more people who are also like-minded. And because they can broadcast what they are doing, I mean, so many things I found out what to do was just listening to the radio station. And I'm like, man, these DJs have a good sense of music style. And they're like, by the way, if you want to do what we're doing, Saturday morning, we're helping out, cleaning up the river or whatever. I'm like, man, if people like that are, I like those people. So maybe I'll show up and help clean up the river and meet more people. So it's like free advertisement for community involvement events. One thing, I guess that's maybe the main thing that they can do. They just draw attention to these activities that help out the community.
Yeah, for sure. And especially like with that sort of educational and nonprofit sort of intersection there. Like we really do have a unique opportunity to get our voices on air and support the things that we really believe in, and to try and make that change. So I mean, yeah, that's something that we're really still trying to do today. Yeah, like we just did a little fundraiser, a little canned food drive for the Gamecock Pantry here on campus. So we I think got like hundreds of cans. It was like multiple hundreds of cans across Garnet Media Group. So yeah, we're trying to do the best that we can. So that's definitely something that drew me in as well. So what do you think WUSC taught you that you would not be able to learn anywhere else?
One thing, it's public speaking, but it's not the traditional public speaking. And here's where I'm going to with that. So, and it's actually helping me as I am right now, a 49-year-old English teacher. I'm currently working in our virtual school for our local school district. And so our particular district cannot require or does not require the students to have their cameras on, right? So they don't have their microphones or cameras on. So it's just a bunch of icons. And it is just like I'm on the radio. Like when I was on the radio talking, you have no clue who's listening, or if nobody's listening, or if there are a lot of people listening. Yeah. And so I would tell these dumb jokes, just things to make me kind of like, that's pretty clever. I'll say this. Or I always had this idea that there's some hardcore listeners out there listening. And so that's who I'm talking to, right? Well, that's helped me immensely now because I can't get any reactions from my current students, but I don't need it. Like some of my co-teachers, they're struggling. Like I can't read facial expressions, so it's really hard for me to teach. And I'm sitting over here saying, no, this is fine. You just go through it and whatever. So it has helped me with that aspect for sure. Just the public speaking, getting up and talking, although it's not face to face. So I'm not saying that it's the same as getting up in front of a crowded room, but then again, there's a chance that I had a crowded room of listeners, at some point. It's just I wasn't there face to face with them. But another thing that helped was, it's almost weird for me to say it, but it helped me with a networking sense because, and generally the crowd that goes into, kind of the left of center type alternative lifestyles, they kind of run, at least in my mind, they're running from networking events. Like they aren't the ones that are showing up at these meet and greet things. But when you got the radio station, you've got that hardcore group of people that and all. It led me to my first job. Like the graduate student who was at WUSC, one of my early years there, she was an English teacher at Dreher High School. And so when I graduated and there were no English teaching positions around back in 1993, she was able to get my foot in the door, for an interview. And she talked me up enough to where they gave me a chance. So that was another thing that I could not have done because I wasn't in any other clubs or anything at USC as much as I was at the radio station, but it did help me to use those ties.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the connections that we can make here as an organization are just absolutely phenomenal. There are just certain things that I know I would never be able to do unless I were here. And I'm exactly the same way. Like I'm so much more heavily involved in WUSC than I am anything else. So it's definitely a very interesting place to be.
Well, and also for depending on your career too, like I'm not sure if your major is mass communications or something, but pretty much all of my friends that were at the radio station that had a major in journalism or some type of broadcast journalism or something, it really helped them get jobs, because you have all that hands-on experience.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm an advertising major, so even still, even though we are nonprofit, we do still have underwriting, so I am able to sort of use that and call that experience as well. So that's definitely something that I wouldn't really be able to get through another organization.
Yeah, and back in my time, it was all before the Facebook type stuff and all the social media. So you would have someone who would get a job, like out west, and all of a sudden, if someone else went out there, they knew, hey, there's a WSCJ out here, kind of even in that realm. Nowadays you can kind of see who's somewhere much easier. But back then, you had the graduates from WSC went all over the place to work. And I don't know, I guess that's back to the networking thing.
Just sort of, getting to the end here. What is your best memory from the station in your time here?
Oh man. Now my most embarrassing moment came from WUSC, in the studio. I don't know. That's always one that I go to whenever you're having to share most embarrassing moments. So that was fun. So there's this band, named the Screaming Trees. Okay. And they got pretty big once grunge hit, cause they were kind of old when Nirvana and Mudhoney hit in the late 80s. And so they were kind of just a little bit older. But anyway, they had some radio hits from one of their albums. But this was back before that time. And so I'm young and at the radio station and just getting into that scene with Sub Pop being a record label and bands out of Olympia, Washington and all this stuff. Well, Screaming Trees, I liked them a lot. And so they're from a town called Ellensburg, Washington. And I knew that because of the record reviews that are on WUSC. You do a review and you write stuff on there. So I knew they were from Ellensburg, Washington. Well, it was one Saturday night and I was doing a show. No one was around the station, and all of a sudden a former station manager came up and she introduced herself, and I had heard of her and seen her name around, but she had already moved out, graduated and all before I even got to right as I was a freshman. She had been gone for maybe 2 years. So anyway, she comes in and she goes, oh, and this is my friend Gary. And I said, oh, okay, how you doing? In typical Southern fashion, your first question after you meet somebody is, where are you from? And so I said, where are you from? And he said, I'm from Washington. Well, I was just getting into the scene, in Pacific Northwest. So I said, whoa, like DC or like the state? And he goes, the state, Washington State. Well, this is the first guy I'd ever met who might even be closely resembling, anything with the Sub Pop grunge scene. So I'm like, whoa, what town in Washington? And he goes, Ellensburg. I'm like, Ellensburg? Are you kidding me? The Screaming Trees are from there. And so it got really kind of quiet. And Janet, who was his girlfriend and the former station manager, goes, yeah, this is Gary Lee Conner, the guitarist of the Screaming Trees, because they were dating at the time. And so here I am thinking I'm a super fan. Like, I'm going to impress this guy. Sure enough, he was one of them. I didn't even know, because back then you don't see pictures of the band, So anyway, I definitely had to eat some crow and say, and then I had the fan moment, like, I can't believe you're you. So that was one highlight. But another one that kind of I guess I look back on with fond memories. That maybe two. One, in the Russell House, there used to be, where all that food court is on the second level? There's like Pizza Hut and all that stuff. Do you know where that is?
Yeah, it's changed. There's no more Pizza Hut, but it's, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, around in there, they used to have this area called, I think it was called the Golden Spur. And it was kind of an area where you could have parties, almost, it wasn't a music club by any means, but you could rent it out to do like birthday parties and everything. Well, one of the fundraisers from the media, not just WUSC, but all of the media organizations, they did a talent show, or like a lip sync talent show. And so my friends and I ended up being Public Enemy, and we ended up winning the karaoke. I guess it wasn't even karaoke because you were lip syncing, but we won the talent show, and that was a highlight. I'm not sure quite why, except for I listened to the Public Enemy song so many times because I was Terminator X DJ, and so I had to memorize how to scratch and all on the stage or look like I was. So that was a highlight because a lot of our DJs ended up competing in that. So that was a lot of fun. And then another one, which is strange, was I ended up thinking, hey, we ought to do an Adopt the Highway section, right? Like they used to have this program where you could adopt a mile of the highway and you would go out 4 times a year to pick up trash. And so we did it. And for some odd reason, we got the prime location from the Lake Murray Dam, from the dam up to Lexington, you know, like maybe 1 to 3 miles of that road was ours. And so we had a sign that said, this portion of the highway is adopted by WUSC. And it was kind of funny in that respect, but even funnier was when our DJs went out there to pick up the trash. And you can imagine the misfits and the people at the station showing up at 8 a.m. on a Saturday morning to go pick up a bunch of trash. And whoever was there still fondly remembers the different things we found along the side of the road. And I was very proud. But back to an earlier question, it helped, being with that helped me organize and learn how to organize people, which is something that I don't think I would have gotten anywhere. I didn't get it anywhere else at USC, and especially when you have to wrangle that particular clientele of the DJs. You probably know what I'm talking about, like the ones who they are anti-establishment in the first place, so asking them to do something is even more. So I think I got better at being able to convince people to come along to do group projects through that experience. So that would probably be another highlight. And I guess I didn't even think about it. The main thing was just the amount of music we were able to see live, because there were guest lists at the time, and they might still be, but I'm out of the scene now. But, you know, we could give away tickets, and by bringing in business to the local bars for shows, they would give us 2 passes for free. And so I was just able to see a wealth of bands when I couldn't afford it, because obviously poor college students. But that allowed me to do what I love to do, which is see live music much more economically pleasing to my wallet. So that was definitely a highlight, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. I was able to see Loud Luxury, who's a Canadian group, up at the Senate not too long ago, before, you know, COVID and all hit. Man. But yeah, we were able to get those tickets. We were able to give some away. It was a really, really good time.
That's amazing. Yeah, and I'm telling you, that's what it's all about, you know? I mean, those are the memories that'll last forever. And you got to do it.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think that wraps it up for me. Thank you so much, Brent, for coming back to talk with me about your experiences here. I really appreciate it, and I'm really hoping that we'll be able to, you know, open up our doors to our alumni again for shows very soon once COVID, you know, dies down a little bit. But yeah, thank you so much again.
All right, yeah. So that means that until then, you are responsible, Ben, for keeping the airwaves rocking and rolling and super souling until everybody else can come back to a sense of normalcy. So that's a large responsibility, but I think you can do it for sure. So.
Thank you. And before we go, do you think you could give us a legal ID?
Sure. Yeah, of course. Hello, rock and rollers, super soulers. This is Brent Stud Dog Riley, and you are listening to WUSC-FM, Columbia.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Brent. I really appreciate it.
Okay, you're welcome. Have a good one, Ben.
You as well. Stay safe.